generally we initially start plotting, it's very conversational. We'll have a book idea. Um, I mean, we live like 6 hours apart, so sometimes it's just on the phone or on FaceTime. If we're together, then it's just sitting down and just chatting through it. What I should have said is in which is the first book in the Redbridge series is actually kind of an interesting way that that happened. Um, because what we originally thought that book was, it didn't end up being. We knew the characters, the main characters, Nora and Bennett, very well, and we thought it was going to be a enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, but more rom-com, which you technically could say there is rom-com in there, but it's a highly emotional book. And we must have had like 90,000 words written on that book. And we realized yeah, there's way more emotion here. Bennett is very grumpy, and there's a reason that he is. Um, and so we had to explore that further, and we ended up doing a lot of rewrites on it because then it's like we finally allowed ourselves to lean into something that wasn't just rom-com, but was definitely deeply emotional.
So when we write a series, especially the Redbridge series, we did not actually know the context of our second book, When I Should Have Stayed, until we were heavily involved in the first book, What I Should Have Said.
Yes.
Sometimes we know a series from the ground up. We know there are going to be 3 books. We know these characters are the main characters in those books. And then we're pulling side characters in and people in that maybe you don't expect. And oh, maybe there's a 4th book. We can surprise ourselves sometimes. But this series in particular, we didn't know the rest of the series until that first book was well underway. And so though these stories actually kind of timeline interlock, which is not how a lot of our series go. Some of them are sequential, the first story and then the second characters meet in the second story and so on and so forth. But this one, you actually go back in time and When I Should Have Stayed before the timeline of What I Should Have Said for part of that book. And that's largely because it's a second chance romance. That happens between the sister of Nora, her name is Josie, and Nora is the main character in the first book. And they've been estranged for many years. So her past was not part of Nora's story in that way. So we get to go back to it, which was really fun to do. A different way to write a book for us. We've done some timeline shifts before, but this was done differently and fresh for us. And that was exciting. It was a fun experience, and it was a fun experience reliving a few scenes, not a lot of the scenes, but there are some very pivotal scenes in the first book, not to spoil some things, but the emotionally charged underlaying part of the story is a huge part of the second book story as well. So that was fun to relive them, and that's actually kind of a themage of the series is seeing things from a main character's perspective, and you realize internally that you're not the main character that you thought you are in your own story, but other people are the main character in their story as well.
And we just fell in love with the small town of Redbridge that we created. We just were like, we want to stay in here, and that's how also that was motivation also to keep books coming in it. With Redbridge, a small town, and Max actually lives in a small town. Like it should have this feeling of everybody knows everybody, everybody's in everybody's business. So you need those secondary characters that are quirky, but they're fun. They're maybe a little gossipy. That's the fun part of Redbridge. And also it's a community, you feel the community. They all feel like family to each other. I would say that's the main staples with Redbridge.
Yes. So for us, we write character-driven romance novels. That is at the heart of our stories. So we don't follow a structure or a formula, as it were, of 30% they're kissing, 40% they're thissing. We don't do that, which a lot of people do, and it would be great, it would be helpful, but we don't write that. We write character-driven romance, and the small town and the small town romance, in my opinion, is like a third main character. Yeah. It's you are having that is a huge part of the story and the way that it goes, so you're carrying that throughout everything. And in this series, we knew that once that first book was fully formed, for the second book, When I Should Have Stayed, and then the third book we have titled, it's going to be Where I Should Have Been. And that is also part of it. We have the two main characters in that, which happen to be a guy who goes by Farmer Tad to a lot of the town.
Yeah,
I'm
he's a
sure
sheep
maybe
farmer.
he would not call himself Farmer Tad, but he is known as Farmer Tad to a lot
Yes.
of the town.
Yeah.
And the Bennett, who is the main male character of the first book, it's his sister Breezy. And she's a city girl.
Yeah.
And she'll be entering into small town life. And again, that small town will be like a third character in their
Mhm.
story.